Greetings, travelers. The following episode includes a special guest. Now, sometimes our guests speak about uncomfortable subjects. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, I'm author Mark Muncy.
And I'm author Erika Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. It's Nightmare November.
Yep. Still going on. Oh my gosh. It's Halloween overtime still. We're having way too much fun.
I don't know why you keep saying Halloween. Halloween is all year for you, so we're Nightmare November.
Nightmare November. All right.
But we have some breaking news.
Oh my gosh, what's the breaking news?
The breaking news is we have a new producer, and it's somebody who everyone on the show already knows and loves.
Yeah.
Yes, it is the amazing, the fantastical, the legendary Beau Lake.
Never been called legendary before. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it fits well. So joined us for our Roanoke episode, joined us for a few of the live podcasts, Bunny Man Bridge, all that. So Beau, thanks for stepping up and joining us. And
we still have Callie. But Callie's got a lot of life, work, all kinds of stuff going on. So they're still with us, but we had to have somebody else to help out because we just keep growing and the amount of episodes and fans, and we love you. So this is the next step, bringing the incomparable. I'm going to keep finding words to use.
Yeah, it's like all the Marvel, adjectives like amazing, incredible, stupendous, and all
stupendous.
Yeah, all that. So, but Beau, thanks for coming in. And what an episode to come in on, because on top of that, we recently got, I guess, a couple of our fans put us on a Dogman message board.
I was going to say recently. This has been going on for like 2 months.
2 months. It's still recent to me. 2 months to me. And so we've been getting tons of our listener questions, and our listener emails have been about Dogman and wanting to know more about Dogman. So I reached out to one of my incomparable and amazing friends who is a researcher in this field and probably one, I would say, of the premier experts on this. And I do not say that lightly.
No, Mark has been diligently waiting for this amazing person to be able to join us, because although Mark does know about Dogman, I'm not going to pretend to know about Dogman, but he wanted this person to join us because they are the person to talk to.
They are definitely an expert. They've written papers and theses on this. So and now we've got her in the studio with us. So please welcome the incomparable Sally Gage.
Woo! Welcome, Sally.
I thank you.
Yes, look at these openings.
We got one of these days we'll trim them down, but I like building them up, so it's all good.
So Sally, Mark is fanboying again. Everybody knows this. Mark goes into fanboy mode. But because we have just met, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into the world that is Dogman?
It goes back to 1987 of all years.
Time travel machine.
Way back machine.
Do the time travel machine noise. It was April 1st, 1987. WTCM Radio in Traverse City, Michigan, did a joke, and they thought this was a great April Fool's joke by making a song called The Legend. And The Legend took newspaper clippets and news stories and stories about this creature in northern Michigan that was werewolf-like without saying werewolf. And I heard that, and it changed my life. Not only did it, one, scare me because I lived in northern Michigan in the woods, but it started out that WTCM Radio got more people saying that this was true, that this happened to them. How did they know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it started there. I even went so far in the research as I adopted a wolf, and I learned wolf communications and how they work and how they move, how they do everything in life. And I went to college for animal science for the first go around. So I got a degree in animal science. I went to college again and got my degree in anthropology. So there's my wolf and man. And I started working on my master's, working on literature, dealing with all the stories and all the stuff that comes with it. And it just never stopped. It just snowballed from there. And I like to focus more on the reality of the situation more than the sensational. And it's like, yes, Silver Bullet was really fun and I loved it, but what is the reality of the Dogman that people experience? There's a kernel of truth there, and like in all legends and all urban legends, that there is a kernel of truth, and that just tickles my bunions on that one. And that's how it started.
Wow. And I love to tickle my bunions. I'm going to start using that. My bunions are tickled. So, okay. So there's this song. We should try to find that song.
I'll dig for it.
Okay, dig for the song. Make notes.
Making
Mark.
a note. Well, we should have the producer make a note.
We have a producer. Producer, make a note, because I love
it. That song and its versions are available on Spotify.
There we go. So we need to, so we can link that. So what is your actual first experience with Dogman, or what people call Dogman?
Well, I have always been secondhand. I've always heard reports, but I've never experienced it until about 3 years ago. I was doing a rescue mission. I was driving to New York, and it was right on the tails of a hurricane. So everything was weird and everything was energized. And we were driving through the area, Stark, where all the prisons are and all the swampland is.
That's Stark, Florida. Yeah.
Stark, yeah. And I first experienced the Kelpie, which I'll tell later. And then later that same drive, not 20 minutes later, I saw deer eye shine. And that's not unusual in the woods, except for the eye shine that was behind them that was about 3 feet taller. That was the red eye shine. And I recognize that from the stories as being Dogman-like. They started to come towards us. That they were herding the deer towards the highway, and I started to freak out just a hair. And because I'm on a darkened highway, and there's a herd of deer and something bigger behind them, and my wife, who was with me, saw the same thing on her side of the vehicle. They're driving in a V formation. They're driving the deer towards the traffic.
Wow.
And the only thing I could think of was I got to get out of this situation, because one, if I hit a deer, it's going to total my plastic vehicle. And two, if a Dogman hits my car, I'm going to both be elated and scared out of my pants. So I kept driving, and I kept a kind of an eye in the back window, and I saw the deer cross behind. But I never saw the features of the Dogman, but I do recognize the tall red eyes that were driving them. So personal hand experience, they were in a driving formation, driving the deer towards the traffic, which predatorily wise, it makes sense, because if a truck takes out a deer, they don't have to fight it and kill it. They just pick it up and take it.
Yep.
No, that makes sense.
And they also make good kill boxes, because it's wide open area. Yeah, nowhere for them to hide.
Exactly. Wow. And that was my very first experience in the physical realm with Dogmen. Now I've heard reports where they are telepathic, where they know when you're looking for them, and they can either avoid or confront. I've heard this, and I'm like, yeah, right. I didn't believe it until I was in a northern part of Tampa, where I was looking, and I started having dreams, and it was very vivid, real dreams. And I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want to play. So I stopped, and those dreams stopped. And I'm not what you call a historical person or what have you. I'm very grounded in science, but I give that out there, and it's like, this is what I experienced. I can't tell you how real it was. It was just brain activity, but there we have it. There was some kind of contact that was made, that a creature followed me from dream to dream and confronted me, basically warning. It's like, you don't want to do this. And I stopped, and it stopped. And I'm like, okay, I respect that, because if all reports are true, these things could tear my arms off, and I don't want that to happen.
So that was going to be my question. As you know, Mark has been in the wild, wacky world, this kind of wild, wacky world. I come from more of a true crime, much darker, I feel like, almost side of things. But
me too.
Yeah, that's where I live.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been interesting to me about Dogman and hearing stories about Dogman and things like that versus Bigfoot and some of these other cryptids that we talked about, right, is they seem very aggressive. Like they, you talk about going and looking and for Bigfoot and stuff, and it seems like for the most part, the stories I've heard, and I haven't heard all of them, so listeners, don't go crazy. Of course, if you want to share stories, don't. There's not a lot of judgment because we haven't really gone down the Bigfoot rabbit hole and talked about it a lot with anybody, but they seem like Dogman is more of a hunter, more of a predator than some of these other cryptids have shown themselves to be for the most part, right? I'm gonna leave it to you now, but that's what my perception has been thus far is like, and when people go, I'm gonna hunt for Dogman, I'm like, that seems like a very dumb thing to do. But, right. So what is your perception there?
I feel I can only go based on the science of what I know. I know wolves, and I know that they are an apex predator. Taking on that, what I know of, the wolf, and just extrapolating from based on other canids and other top predators, they have a territory marked out, and it is transient. They move in that area. They mark their territories, and that is their home base. I view of the cryptids out there that they are predatory and they are dangerous. However, if you don't muck with them, they don't muck with you unless encroached upon. I have heard of several accounts where they have gone into even well-populated areas. I think that's transient. I don't think that's hunting. But if you go looking, they're going to defend like any wild animal. Even people, if you go into some guy's house that says no trespassing, if you go in there, dollars to donuts, you're gonna probably get shot. So we are no different than them, and they are no different from us in the fact that they have their territory staked out. I want to know personally. I want to know genetics. I talked to another podcaster where I would love to get a hold of fur, skin, bone, but I have a theory on as to why we don't find this, and it could be the very fact that they eat their dead.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's been a common. I've heard that before from a couple other investigators too. That
where it's common for mothers to eat after birth to not leave a scent. It would also make sense if there's a death that they would be eaten too. There would be nothing left behind. You would not leave a trail in existing, like follow me here. It would be eliminated and they can move on.
Do you think they're more pack animal like wolves?
Yes, they are. I believe, because I've only really heard of solitary males or family units. So that would be on track with wolves.
What is okay, I'm just going to ask this. In your research and everything, what is a Dogman? What is the description? Because it's not a werewolf, right? It's not somebody who shifts or...
No, it's a Dogman is a Dogman. It does not change form except from puppy to adulthood. It is a creature. And a lot of people say, oh, you're crazy. There's no such thing as Bigfoot, UFOs, and all that stuff. And it's like, well, there's literally thousands of people every year that see these things. Why would a cop or a paramedic or, Uncle Joe out in his trailer, why would he make this up to be ridiculed?
Right.
There's a kernel of truth there. Do I know exactly what they are? No. I have theories, just like the majority of the researchers out there. We have grainy footage, and why can't we get a good picture of a Dogman? I also have a theory about that. There's in the cells of a squid, the chromatophores allow them to rapidly change their body shape and texture and color. What if they had chromatophores that help them camouflage?
Well, that would fit Dave Pilates' theory on them, because he says that they're kind of like the predator effect. We like to call it cloaking,
and that is the result of chromatophores within their hair structure to do that. It is within our scientific knowledge. That is fact. Maybe they have developed something beyond, a cephalopod. So I have questions that I would love to get answered. All I can do is theorize.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's sadly, for a lot of these investigators, they like to come out and say, "Oh, I'm an expert on this. I'm an expert on this," and because they've had one experience or they've read one book on it or something, and it's like, that's why we don't like to put that expert stamp on anybody.
When you called me an expert, it's like I'm uncomfortable with that, even though I've been studying this for a good portion of my adult life. I'm not out there with my crews and my camo and digging through the woods looking for a werewolf. I have to be selective about what I research, and I try to find the science, because ultimately it's the science that people are drawn to. Just like it's the ridge lines on a fingerprint, or it's the blood spatter patterns. I want to see what could lead to that. Like, I think when you were out doing actual field work in North Carolina, I think it was, and you asked, what do I look for? And it's like, look for roadkill.
Yeah.
The more roadkill there is, more than likely that's the area, because the animals are coming in from the woods onto the roads. They try to flee the big predators. And when you start seeing that, there's something, a big predator in the area. That's common sense hunting knowledge.
No,
so
if sense. I also don't think one should be hunting these things.
No. I was doing research. I think it was actually Ohio when I called you, because we were doing that. There'd been those articles about a non-human creature attacking animals, and it turned out to be a bear. But when you get those articles, of course, that pings all kinds of red flags for us that are in this field and and researchers. And I happened to be in the area, literally an hour from the area where these articles are coming, and I'm like, okay, let me reach out to my Bigfoot hunting friends and my Dogfoot man hunting friends, and of course none of them were anywhere near where I needed them to be. And I'm like, oh God, I'm the boots on the ground. That's no good. But that's when I was like, Sally, what am I looking for?
What is the lake? Because we were just
land between the lakes.
The land between the lakes. So this is something that's interesting, and I don't know if you have a perspective on this. Is that there have been a lot of disappearances of people up in that area, and the main cryptid a lot of people talk about being up there is the Dogman, right?
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of people that have gone missing, and we had a really interesting listener, Kale, where it sounded something where something was coming kind of hurting around the camp of one of our people that wrote in, and then they left, like intelligent people do, But that's what I
saw. They were able to write us, and unlike the other people who had disappeared
the
week before. And that was the thing. We looked it up. Literally the week before, two campers have been missing and haven't been seen since. They went to land between the lakes, and their tent was found, and that was it. So
well, if you go back to the land between the lakes, it's the 1980s case where the family was torn to pieces.
Yeah.
They found the family not long after the occurrence happened, and it was a mother, father, brother, little girl. And when I say tore to pieces, I mean tore to pieces. And this was just a horrific account. And they found the little girl up in a tree. That's where her body was.
Find that article so we can share it with the listeners.
Oh no, there's a lot of articles on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of articles, and there's been several podcasts and whatnot about people who had witnessed that, the law enforcement who witnessed that were completely scarred for life. Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that was Dogman versus a bear?
Yes. For such a large grouping of people to be completely wiped out, it's possible that it's feasible that it could be one rabid grizzly bear, but the aspects in what was found there did not ring true for a bear. Would it be possible for one person to get eaten and hauled off by a bear? Absolutely. It does happen. Is it possible that a pack of coyotes could have came in and taken a camper out? Yes, possible. But for a family of four and having the camper tore open and them brutalized in such a way, that doesn't ring true for what I would consider known natural creatures, unless they're diseased or rabid. Like if it was a group of grizzly bears and went in there that they were all rabid, yeah, sure. But what are the chances are of a group of rabid grizzly bears in the land between the lakes? Yeah. Kind of small.
Very
you
small.
Get the black bears, which are really kind of timid and can be spooked away fairly easily. Just the nature of that, I encourage everybody to, if you can, read that story of the accounts about the land between the lakes in the 1980s. It's really quite horrible, and just to let you know that these are things not to be played with. It was also a different part of the season too. I think it was really early spring.
Yeah.
Really before camping really was hitting its heyday, before things had a chance to move out. Because like I said, wildlife is transient, and when they know people are coming in, they kind of get out of their way because they don't want contact. And so this was early in the spring, really early in the spring, like in February. I don't remember the time, but it was definitely off season, and they were definitely brutalized in the most heinous fashion.
And that's that site has become kind of a tourist attraction, where a lot of Dogman hunters will go to that site and start that as their base for moving out. And every time someone goes there, somebody talks about some new evidence that they found, and it's pretty crazy. One of our fellow podcasts, Hellbent Holler, did a recent where she went out and did a big investigation there with her, her and her team. And they came back with they were on their way to the site, and they noticed stuff. They were just a mile away, and they noticed stuff, and so they actually wound up using that as their base. And then when they finally got to the site, they found even more. So that area is still a hotbed, even years on, decades on. It's still crazy.
Yeah, I also recommend reading the local legends of Land Between the Lakes. Like, go beyond. It's like, oh, it's a Bigfoot or Dogman hotspot, but look into native legends and what people have seen prior to the big upswing in the Dogman encounters. It's been there. They've been there for a long time, and they generally don't cotton to humans being there. They just don't.
There's a reason why we never settled that area. When the pioneers went through, they went, nope, we're just gonna keep on moving. they pulled in
Erika, and we're like, you know what? After one attack, we're good. We're gonna go. We're just gonna
look. The other side of the river looks so much better. It's all good.
Plenty of views. Let's go.
We'll make this a state park, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, actually, we'll just tell everybody not to go here. Yeah. And then later we'll be like, state park. This seems like a good idea. Oh my goodness. I want to ask one last. So, what has been one of your favorite or most prolific, I don't want to say whatever Dogman stories, like something that has stuck with you since you began your research into this topic? Besides, obviously, that one where the family is slaughtered. That's pretty. That's big.
My top two are, one, when the song The Legend came out, it literally says my hometown in the song, the Manistee National Forest. That's where I live. That's my hometown. Now, I knew a gentleman who experienced a Dogman in all its glory on Manistee Lake, where it swam from the shore to get him at his boat. It traumatized him.
And that would traumatize me as well. Like, that's something, like, you might see it on the edge of the lake and be like, oh, that's not good, but I'm in a boat. And then it gets in the water and you're like, dear God, I can't.
It swam at me, time to go.
Exactly.
And that is literally a lake that I've swam in and a lake that I've fished on. That's my hometown. So again, that is dealing with, this is coming into my territory as a human being. This was my home. And that's what really got me moving on the Dogman research. Another one is a fairly recent one that happened in Connecticut. I've heard this story a couple times where paramedics were in an ambulance and they came up across a pack and they did a very triangulated attack formation where they had one in the front and four in the back. And they were taller than the top of the main one was taller than the top of the ambulance, which was about 9 feet. And then two smaller ones that were checking the doors. And the ambulance driver said he saw the handle trying to be jimmied. He said they had hands and they were trying to open the doors while the other one kept them distracted. And their account is just astounding, and to me indicates very high intelligence and knowing how to work handles, knowing how to stop a vehicle, and knowing that there's something inside that they could eat, that they could manipulate. And what happened that they finally, these things went away, and they saw the main big gray one in the front. He just, in one bound, leapt over some bushes and some trees, and they were gone. And it took, the one guy who was relaying the story said it took him 10 years to get his partner to talk about it because it was so traumatizing. And to me, it's like, these are guys that are professionals. They were doing their job, and something like this happens. It's like, that lends complete credibility. And I want to know more about these creatures and how many more of these go unreported.
Well, it's interesting because if your theory about them eating their young and stuff like that is accurate, and it makes eating their dead. Sorry, not their young. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Sorry, that was horrific, Erika. What are you doing?
So you turned them into Spartans.
There, I just myself. No, eating their dead. But if you think about it, and I'm sorry, I'm about to offend listeners out there.
Oh, okay, trigger warning again.
Trigger warning.
Double trigger warning.
Double trigger warning. Humans are easy prey for things because, in general, like a 9-foot wolf type thing, what the hell are we going to do? If we have a gun, that's one thing. Armed, we're dangerous, but not armed. We're not outrunning them. We're not doing any of that. We are squishy, fleshy. You don't have to eat the fur. Like, there's a lot easier than even a deer, because the fur on a deer is, I'm sure they don't love that. You know what I mean?
No, that's like what the one guy who was, one of the guys I talked to said, one of the best things you could do is, just roll up in your camp bag, and that way it doesn't smell you anymore. And I said, no, now it's just going to say, oh, that one has a wrapper.
Yeah, exactly.
Sealed for freshness.
Exactly. Oh, look at a burrito.
You look at there are people that are missing all the time, but if you think about it, a child, all these, they're very easy, and then they're just crunchy. Like, and
look at the human beings. We have a diet of high sugar and high fat, so that makes our meat nice and tasty. We don't have big defenses like big claws and big teeth. We don't have a full hairy coat or armored hide. Yeah, that's a delicatessen right there. We are munchable.
It's very true. I've been watching Morgan Freeman on the Planet Earth special on Netflix, but that's exactly what he's talking about. He talks about how the predators developed with the claws and the this and the speed and the armor plating and things like that. And I know we need to go to break, but guess what? We're not good at any of that. We're just squishy meatballs for them to go out and go, you know what? If we just have to open a door, we can get this squishy thing that's inside the door.
Now, the nice thing is we do have these big things that make a lot of loud noise and can shoot pointy things. And that does tend to scare them off, because that's a lot of the hunters and things that I've talked to where they've felt in danger for their life, finally made enough ruckus, just like scaring off a bear, right? You make enough noise, sometimes the bear will leave you alone. Although grizzlies sometimes take that as a sign of, oh, all right, let's throw down. But Dogman tends to run off when you start using the big gun, so it knows this is a danger. But that's what it takes. It doesn't. You throw a rock at it. Guess what?
You're just pissing it off.
Yeah, you've just.
Also, if you just have a small sidearm, you don't, and if you don't have a big firearm, if you shoot one, you're just gonna make it angry.
And then just like a charging bull. If you don't hit the right spot, you've made life worse. So
it's almost like having one of those foghorns would be almost better.
That might actually work. That might actually.
It might actually work.
Yeah, some people use concussive and stuff like and sound things to chase them off. I know it was that stupid death whistle, the African death whistle thing. Yeah. One guy used one and it chased away a dogman, according to his story. So I
believe it, because that's the noise is what's scary to them until they actually get hit.
Yeah, and
that's if you can see. But if there are 9 of them or something, you better be like some sort of like movie Matrix thing to get away from them.
And your encounter, Sally, that bit driving through the road, I had a very eerily similar email from a recent one that I think is going to be on a future listener tale. and that one was very similar, where he was driving along the roads. He was in northern Georgia and on a back road, and then that's when he saw the deer come across, and he was slowing down because he was, worried that there might be more deer. And then that's when he saw the big thing 3 steps across a 2-lane highway, and that's all it took was 3 steps and it was gone. And that's when he was like, okay, I didn't believe in Dogman, but now I do. So
and that's how a lot of people, they say, I don't believe in that kind of hokum until they're driving along a road, and until there's one staring at you in your car window, until there's one looking at you on your hiking trail. Because honestly, when you just talk about it in passing, it's fantastical. It's like, oh my God, a werewolf? Are you crazy? Those aren't real. Well, maybe they are in a sense. Maybe the basis of a lot of these old werewolf tales are actually dogmen.
No, it makes sense. It really does.
You have Roman accounts. Well, Lycian, King Lycian. Okay, the dog-headed men of Rome.
There were lots of
my brain just shut up. Yes,
explorers who discovered them, tribes of them, islands of them,
and they were intelligent. They were communicative. They weren't a danger until, humans being humans decided to make it a danger. And then we started getting more and more tales of people turning into wolves, like the Rougarou. Which the Rougarou Fest just ended last weekend or weekend before last in Louisiana, are still really prevalent. Why is that? It isn't just a passing fad. There's a kernel of truth in there. And I believe that the dogmen, Rougarou, Barden Booger, any of these creatures that are similar could be very much real and just learn to hide from humans. And as we as humans are more roach-like on our environment, we are taking over everything. Their territory is getting smaller and smaller, so more and more encounters are occurring. It's not fantasy. It very well plausible could be happening.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
All right.
I agree.
And on that note, gang,
we have to take a quick break.
Yep. And we'll be back right after this.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Erie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
We're back. So we were asking, I brought up a question which brought up something Sally needs to share. So we were talking about things that kind of call out to you in the woods, travelers. Word of advice from Erika the Nope here is that I said when things call out to you in the woods that you're not reaching out to yourself, don't answer them. Like don't do that. And then Sally, you said you had this in your house.
Yes, and this wasn't even in the middle of the woods. This was in the middle of our neighborhood in St. Petersburg, Florida, and there was a knock at our door and at the window, because at the top of our door had a window, and there was a knock. And I hear Sally open the door, and it was my wife's voice. And I got, that feeling you get. I knew it wasn't real because she was in the bed next to me and knocked again. Sally opened the door, and it's like, you just say no. Like the old adage is, just say no. And I did, and made sure the door was locked, and didn't open the door until dawn, because that's frightening. It wasn't just the fact that there was somebody knocking or something knocking on my door. It was using the voice of a loved one to draw me out.
And like we were discussing also on the break, was that like hyenas, you mentioned, can mimic voices. And so we were talking about
mimic children's cries and the cry of a child. So you want to go out, your immediate instinct is to go out and help a crying child. Well, they mimic that, and they draw you further out, and the further out from your abode that you are, it makes it easier to attack. There's been several instances, I've read several accounts where a mimic was used, whether it be a child's voice or a child's cry, to draw people out of their homes. And I think it was that one boy in Kentucky who was drawn up the mountain, and that's where they ended up finding him.
Yeah, he was hearing.
Where
was his mom's voice? They said, or something like that.
It was a familial voice that had to have drawn him out. That did draw him out, and he ended up not surviving that encounter.
Yeah, he said he heard something outside. He went outside. They were like, "All right, go check on it," and then he was never seen again. Well, they found him. Yeah,
and this is why I say no. And just let it know. If something's talking to you, nope, walk away. Don't even reply. Just walk away. Just no. Lock doors, walk away. Not your thing. Because there are so many different things that have this, I think, as a hunting and as a lure. Like it's a hunting technique. You know what I mean? For whatever they're trying to do, scare you, get your body, whatever, myriad of things.
Yeah, separate you from the herd.
Separate you from the herd, because God, again, we're squishy. So
and tasty.
Yeah, tasty and squishy. This is my new theory. I'm gonna be like, we're tasty and squishy.
Hey, that's the whole reason the dodo became extinct, because one encyclopedia once listed how tasty they were. Guess what? Now there's no dodos. So
I wonder if they were tasty and squishy.
We shall never know.
Yeah, I will never. Well, I don't know. They're bringing a mammoth back.
They're bringing a mammoth back. Let's bring back dodos.
They're going to bring back crap that should. Okay, just nobody watches Jurassic Park. I'm like, just watch one of the movies. You understand why this is a bad idea. Anyway,
exactly.
You brought them back because they look good, but these plants are poisonous. Yeah. Pay attention, people. No, we don't. We like to make the same mistakes all over again. Okay, let's talk about kelpies, though.
Yeah.
So let's first start with, what is a kelpie, Mark?
Go ahead.
Or
Sally, go ahead.
What is a kelpie?
Kelpie is an Irish folklore animal that is a horse that lures people from their safety to the water, where they either drown them or kill them in some way. They are considered a malevolent creature, and they look like a horse covered in seaweed or some other type of vegetation. Now, I have had the great pleasure of actually seeing one. Not something that I anticipated, nor was I really researching, because I really didn't know that much about them. I love horses, yes, but I never delved into that area. And it was that same trip that we were going to New York with, that I saw the Dogman on. I saw the kelpie. And it was literally, I recognized the shape of the horse because I'm an equestrian. Mm-hmm. And I saw this horse coming up out of the ditch and coming onto the main portion of the road. And I slammed on the brakes because it's a horse, and it was a good 16 hands high. And if you're familiar with horse terms, that's a fairly big animal. And as it came up, it looked dripping wet, and it looked like it had all these vines on it. And as soon as the front hoof touched the concrete, it dissipated. It just went into like this mist, and it just went away. And Lisa, my wife, was sitting right next to me, and I'm like, holy shit, did you just see that? And she was pasty white. And I'm like, did you just see that? She's like, I think so. I'm like, tell me what you saw. And she told me the same thing. It looked like a horse. And I'm like, holy shit, excuse my French. I gotta call Mark. I have to call Mark. And it's like, so I made a note of it. And then it was, like I said, later I ran into the Dogmen and their herding technique. And by the time the morning came, I was like, I got to tell Mark what happened. And so I go, have you ever heard of this wet horse thing in Ocala, near Ocala? He's like, it just so happened that I had a listener tell me this story. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
This
So
is the kudzu kelpie, right?
The kudzu kelpie. We dubbed it. We dubbed it the kudzu kelpie because the truck driver, when he saw it, now he had emailed me, he had heard me on Coast to Coast and a few other shows. And like I said, I was known as the Erie, Florida guy forever. I'm still known as that. And this guy sent me an email to the Erie, Florida email, and I had just put it in my file folder of unusual things to look at later, because I only look at things once I've had a second or third encounter, because I don't want to just be, like Vegetable Man story from Kentucky, where one guy was high as a kite, saw a weird alien, and and people still take that as, oh, this is a solid encounter for alien activity. I'm like, one guy saw it, admitted he was high, that doesn't count. But this guy, so this truck driver told me he was a little further north, up near I-10, I-95 junction, and he saw the same damn thing. So it's
Do we think this is a fae though? Because one of the things that having been to Ireland and actually seen their kelpies near their airport and stuff like that, right? I feel like this is almost like a fae type thing, malevolent but a fae.
Agreed.
Yeah,
very agreed. And I also think that when people immigrate to different areas and they keep their stories alive, they keep that energy alive, they can manifest that energy. Now in Ocala, what is prevalent in Ocala?
horses.
And horses and horse lore and horse myth are still there. And of course the Kelpie is going to be one of them, because a lot of people were Irish by origin that work with horses. And it's only natural that sooner or later a manifestation of a fae would occur in those areas. And I think that's what the kudzu kelpie may be, a manifestation of that legend from Ireland. The more we believe in something, the more it is apt to manifest.
And we've had a third and a fourth sighting. One was from a train conductor and another truck driver, and they're all in those same areas, all up and down the I-75, I-95, that 301 junction there. And it's all over that area. And there happens to be a lot of construction going on, destruction of old growth forests and stuff like that are because Amazon's building a new distribution center. The new giant Buc-ee's is going to go there. There's a lot of fun stuff. So,
well, there's also a swampland preservation area where it is literally a protected area.
Yep.
And that's where I saw the Kelpie. It's like it was literally coming out of that near road construction. Speaking of construction, because they were widening the road, and that construction, I think when you got a hurricane, which stirs up everything, Mark, the atmosphere, everything is so wound up, and then you've got construction on top of that. Manifestations of different things are going to occur, whether it be a ghost, ghoulie, kelpie, Dogman, Sasquatch, whatever. Things start to be seen, or it's easier seen because there's so much energy in the atmosphere.
Yep. And like I said, it also is, we disturbing habitats.
That's what we talked about a lot, is that, I feel like some of these things that Native Americans or whatever, they talk about there's a lot of protection spirits and things like that do certain activities, and you're destroying all this natural habitat. So it's not surprising that more and more we're seeing some of these things that in the past, even in other countries, have been described as protection or like signifying bad omens and things like that. Well, you're destroying all this land. It's not surprising that nature spirits would be like, hey, so we're going to have this conversation called I'm about to drown you. Like that's like
exactly. Well, even look at a Dogman. A lot of theory goes in the fact that they are actually protecting Native American burial areas, and that's why they smell different than a Sasquatch. Where a Sasquatch smells like a wet monkey or covered in poo, a Dogman smells like death because they are grave protectors, and that's where they dig and they hide. Not to mention dogs like to roll in dead things. They do. If you have a dog that runs outside, you know this is to be true. Dogmen have been seen around grave areas and Indian burial areas. That's where they are the fiercest and where they have been known to be the most aggressive. So that makes sense also with the Land Between the Lakes area.
Yeah,
if that is a sacred
area.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so we're going to run out of time, but I know Mark has a desperate need to talk Hellview Cemetery.
Hellview.
So I am going to lean back in my chair and let Mark go down memory lane with you, Sally.
Sally, before we called that, we had the wonderful joy of running Hellview Cemetery, our haunted house in St. Petersburg, for almost 2 years. It was crazy. And we had how many? We had like 5,000 people a weekend coming through our backyard. It was nuts.
Easy.
I remember the first time we hit 1,000, we were like, "Wow, this is great!" And then the next year, it was like, "What happened?" It was like we couldn't keep count. It was so crazy. But now you know the house well.
Yes.
And you were one of the kids' babysitters for a long time.
I was their nanny from the time they were 8 months old, Mark.
Yeah. You were there almost more than I was. Now I know you had some experiences there.
Oh yeah. Between Sarah in the house and outside of the house, with the fearmonger, whatever that thing was that was walking through and stomping and throwing leaves in the back, that was not very friendly, and I didn't really like that. But Sarah was a lot of fun. Look at Jimmy and his pencil incident.
Oh yeah, explain that one real quick, because that's a great story.
As the listeners may or may not know, you are a huge nerd, and in turn, we played Dungeons and Dragons.
That, Sally. Don't worry, they've come to realize that fact.
I didn't want to spoiler alert. He's a
no. It's all good. It's all good.
We got together every week and we played Dungeons and Dragons. And there was one time. It was old school, and we're all in the living room, and this was a particular time. I think it was right around Halloween, and things were active. You'd hear knocks and bumps and what have you. To my right sat our friend Jimmy. If you knew Jimmy, he's your only gothic redneck you're ever going to find, and he loves all things supernatural. However, this time there was a flash of light almost directly in front of him, and we all saw it. It was like a little blue light and went poof. And out of that light, a pencil, one of those mechanical pencils, dropped into his lap after he was just saying he was looking for his pencil. We saw this, and I thought Jimmy couldn't get any whiter, but he turned a very gray, pasty white, and he looked away, and I'm like, "Oh my God, did you just see that?" And Mark was like, "That didn't just happen." And Tony's like, "I think I need to go." And Pat's like, "Oh my God, it's going to get Jimmy," because it literally, there was a materialization happened right in front of Jimmy.
Yeah.
And we saw it, we witnessed it, and we did what any good nerd would do, and we just kept gaming because it was just too weird not to.
Yeah, that was, hey, he got his pencil back. We were good.
He got his pencil back.
Something brings you a pencil. Be happy you got a pencil.
It's time to play. Yeah, it's time to roll dice. Yeah, now we were talking about the fearmonger. Before, we brought it up a few times. Callie and Beth were really digging into that when we did the Hellview episode early on. Now, you had an experience with that as well, right? Where it was trying to let you know that it was looking for you, if I recall.
It was walking, like you could hear things. Again, this harkens back to the calling out, and I could hear something, and it would walk back and forth by the window back by Beth's room. It would walk and call, and you would hear keys jangling, like it had keys, and it left you with one of those feelings like, and if I open that door, I think I'm going to be axe murdered right there. So I obviously kept the door shut, but deep inside, I wanted to go out there. And cooler mind says, don't go out there, dude. You're going to get axe murdered. When Hellview was not in operation, this was happening when Hellview was not in operation. It was moving through the pattern of the exterior haunted house. So you could hear it walking, and you could hear it come from the back to go out to the side gate. And you would hear the keys jangling, and it was unnerving. It really was. But for whatever reason, I think it was your religious neighbor who didn't like Hellview. After we told them we were doing a charity, they did prayers for us. It didn't come back for a while.
No, it definitely. We also did the big purge the one time where we the kids were gone for the summer, and everybody was over for a gaming night, and we heard weird noises. So we looked into what was then Callie's room, which later became my bedroom, and we saw the mist.
Was that the one that grabbed you by the shirt and shoved you?
Yep, and shoved me into the closet. Yep. That shirt is on.
Good times.
Back there, my ripped up shirt. I put on a ripped up zombie because waste not, want not. We're haunters. So, man, yeah, that was a crazy night. I just remember the mist rising up and Jimmy going, "Do you
put his hand in it?
Do you see that?" And it was like, and it literally looked like it was putting on gloves, like it was about to kick our ass, and literally it did. So but.
More importantly, it kicked Mark's ass, and then we stepped back.
You don't have to outrun your enemies, just your friends.
When you see when you see the nearly 300-pound guy get thrown through a closet door with nothing pushing him, it's that was Jimmy's quote. It was like, when I saw Mark get lifted off the ground about a foot, it was time to go.
The closeness of friends.
yes. I was like, thanks for having my back, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, remember, you and the girls were out of the house, and we asked if we could do a ghost investigation of your house, and I got all those really cool pictures.
Yeah, I was gone. Yeah, I was in for a GameStop conference. So yeah.
And they responded really well. It would literally, if you ask a question, the lights would respond, or things of that nature. We got some really great orb pictures that. It could have been dust, but the one that we took in Callie's room with that big long ribbon,
that was crazy.
Was not.
Yeah,
so the experiences in that house were astounding. Like the time that I was asleep in the back room, and Sarah was in the garbage, rattling the garbage, and Pat wouldn't move. I'm like, Sarah's in the garbage. He's like, so, and it's like, my head is literally 3 feet from the garbage can. Please do something. And he's like, whatever. And he rolls over and goes to sleep. And it's like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him.
Our boy Pat.
Friends.
True friendship there.
True friendship there. Now, Sally, you also have, you're Native American descent, and you've done lots of investigations into that lore. And I don't like to call it lore because it's just the way it is.
History.
Yeah, the history. You're from the Ojibwa tribe.
Ojibwa. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, Ojibwa Mi'kmaq up in northern Michigan, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Michigan area. So now you've also, you've got, so that leads you back to Dogman again, because that's, you've got some Dogman activity in that area as well.
Absolutely. There is literally, I was reading some old text where it was how they were pronouncing it in Ojibwa was literally Dogman. It was literally the term Dogman in the language about these guardians of the forest. And they were guardians of burial grounds and sacred areas, describing what we would describe today as a Dogman. So it's more than just a song that started in 1987. It's hundreds of years that Dogman and these legends were there, and these stories were, at least through my people in the Ojibwa tribe there's these stories. And it goes further west, all the way out to the Lakotas, there in the Dakota area, where it's the same type creature, the same type of stories, that if you take the base kernel of what it looks like and what it does, just that alone, these stories are prevalent and are there on almost every major continent on this earth. It's not just a Native American quote thing. You have them in Russia, you have them in England, you have them in Spain, and you have them in South America. I think the only landmass that doesn't have a Dogman story is Hawaii.
Yeah,
I'll check it out while I'm there.
yeah.
We'll
You're
go
heading
there in a
there
couple
to
weeks.
check out for Dogman.
I will be like, excuse me, have you guys seen a Dogman here?
They definitely come to a luau. They'd come to a barbecue luau. So, but
talk about the little people of Hawaii and the night marchers. Oh my God, I'm flummoxed and fangirling. Yes, the little people of Hawaii and the night marchers are just amazing stories. Please look into them. They are really cool.
All right.
I will.
Yeah. Notes there, producer. Can you text that to Erika to look on their trip to Hawaii? So
remind me when I'm wearing my luau.
One more thing before we go into shameless self-promotion. Sal, you have one more unique hobby, I think. I wouldn't say unique, but it's definitely very close to unique. That you go to conventions like we do as often as you can, and you have a very special thing that you take with you that you are known for.
I am known for, and I have made amazing connections with, and I've met the most incredible people with my werewolves. I have a pack of werewolves that I go with, and I don't mean full size, I mean baby werewolves. They're called werepups, and I was one of the first to take them out in public and display and have them. And Stella is world famous. She has met more celebrities than I have, and she has been on more celebrity Instagrams than I can count, and more than I have met. She's been into the green rooms of all these big conventions where I just wait for her to come back out. And it's amazing. My werepups, they're made by Asia Erickson, but I collect them and they're fantastic. I have 4 now. Right. I have Stella and Matilda, Oliver, and I have my newest one is Anderson. They're so much fun, and I have Stella registered as an emotional support werewolf. So she has her little ESA on, and that's what I used her for, because her weight is that of an infant, and she keeps my anxiety in check. And she's an amazing creature, and she was a spokespup for Hellview for a couple years there.
4 years, yeah. We had Silas first, and then their granddaddy, and then the babies, and they are amazing. And I'll never forget our wonderful friend from True Blood, Pam, whose actress name is escaping me from the moment.
Kristen Bauer Van Straten.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when she met them and then talked about them on a podcast it was on like immediately after, it was hysterical because they really talking about Sally.
We went to Dragon Con, and Dragon Con is hugely overwhelming, and we met the stars of True Blood, which is Nelson Ellis and Mike McMillan, and we met Kristen Bauer Van Straten. And so they're really cool, and we went about our life. However, after Dragon Con, we came home, we're settling back into normal life. And it was that week that the Nerdist, which is ID 10T now, but it was the Nerdist then, the podcast dropped with Chris Hardwick and Kristen Bauer Van Straten. And at the 5-minute mark, they started talking about me. And she did this whole thing, and I nearly wrecked the car because I was getting all these texts. It's like, oh my God. And a text that says, you won't believe this. And I'm like, holy shit, did somebody get in trouble? Is someone in an accident? They said, you gotta turn on the Nerdist podcast. And so I did, and I fell out. So there was this section where Chris Hardwick and Kristen Bauer Van Straten were talking about Stella and I and the meeting at Dragon Con. It was to this day, I listen to it and I'm like, I can't believe this even actually happened to me.
She does an impression of you. It's pretty epic.
Well, we'll have to get a picture from you of these lovely.
Oh yeah, we'll put them on all our socials.
Then we'll have to get a link to if anybody wants one themselves. But okay, shameless self-promotion time, Sally.
Yeah, where can we find you online if someone has Dogman questions or other questions?
Honestly, since I had all of my social media accounts hacked and dispersed, I am under Sallea Mackenzie, and it's Sallea Mackenzie, Mckenzie, which is an old family name, which I found out that I'm Scottish. Weird. So Sallea Mackenzie, and that's either on my Insta or my Facebook, or you can find me at WerePupMom and Instagram. So There I am.
All
and
right.
if you have a burning question that you want to talk to me privately, ladysvanhelsing@gmail.com.
Very cool. We'll make sure all those links are in the podcast notes. And Sally, it has been amazing to meet you. Mark has talked nonstop about you, so I'm so glad you were able to join us and speak about Dogman, among other things. So, listeners, here's your Dogman episode.
Yeah. And and please keep sending your tales. Keep sending your questions to us. We have a couple listener tales and listener questions episodes lined up coming very soon. We all love them. And then we'll continue Nightmare November with more coming soon. But with that, gang, thank you so much again, Sally, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome, Beau.
And welcome, Beau. What an episode
Beau.
to join us. All right, gang. So out there, when you're out in the woods at night and you hear your voice calling, or if you see that glowing red eye shine, you know what to do. Run faster than your friends. And
Run faster than your friends.
Yep. And we will see you on the other side.